Good day, children. Today we are going to begin with a new chapter, Chapter 4, Analytical Chemistry. Now, analytical chemistry is that branch of chemistry which basically deals with analysis as the name indicates. Analysis refers to a detailed examination of the elements or structure of something to gain a better understanding of it. Now, when we are talking of analysis in chemistry, we refer to two kinds of analysis. One is quantitative while another is qualitative. Now, as the name suggests, quantitative basically refers to quantities. Quantities as in, for example, suppose I say that I want to prepare 5 grams of NaCl. If 5 grams of NaCl is to be made, how much of NaOH is required to react with how much of HCl so that I get the required quantity of NaCl without wasting any chemical and without not making an extra amount of NaCl to avoid wastage. Now, these quantities will refer to measurements and the volumes, the masses, the moles, etc. This particular part of analytical chemistry you will study in +1 if you pursue sciences. This year we are going to limit our study to qualitative analysis. Now, what is qualitative analysis? Qualitative, as the term says, it refers to the quality or identity of something which is unknown to us. So, qualitative analysis refers to identification of an unknown substance by testing it chemically. Now, let's take an example of identification of an unknown salt. Now, suppose a salt is given to us and we are asked to identify the salt. The first thing is that we will look at the physical appearance of the salt. Physical appearance will include color. Now, I will tell you there are a few salts which have colorless ions like sodium ion, potassium ions, calcium ions, magnesium ions. Now, what does this mean? It means all salts of sodium will be colorless, all salts of calcium will be colorless, all salts of magnesium will be colorless, etc. Similarly, sulfide ions, chloride ions, carbonate and sulfate ions are also the colorless ions. While there are some colored ions like copper salts are always blue or greenish blue. Ferrous ions are light green. Ferric ions are reddish brown. And similarly, manganate is deep pink, for example, potassium permanganate. Because of the presence of this manganate, potassium permanganate is deep pink in color. Similarly, dichromate is orange in color. Potassium dichromate or ammonium dichromate are orange in color because of the presence of this particular ion. Now, in the nature, besides the color, we will also have nature. The nature of the salt can either be crystalline or it can be amorphous. Crystalline is the one which will have proper crystals, just like you see the crystals in sugar or you see it in salt, common salt. They are crystalline salts. Amorphous refers to amorpha. A means without, morphous refers to morphology. So, the salts which do not have any morphology or which are powdery, which are like a powder, they are known as amorphous. So, the physical appearance will include the color or it will include the nature. Now, before we proceed ahead, I would like to tell you the meaning of precipitate. What is a precipitate? A precipitate is an insoluble product which is formed when two soluble mixtures are put together. So, when you mix one solution to another, a residue is left behind which does not dissolve. That residue is referred to as a precipitate. Alright, now when you are identifying a salt, basically what does a salt contain? A salt has two parts. It has a positively charged part which is known as a cation and a negatively charged part which is called anion. If somehow we can identify the cation present in the salt and the anion present in the salt, we will be able to know what the salt is. Now, this physical appearance is only to make a guess. For example, suppose you see a blue salt. Just by looking at it, you will know because it is blue in color, it is likely to be a copper salt. So, you will proceed ahead for when you have to test the cation, the first one you will test will be copper. And if you know somehow that it is a sulfate salt, the first anion you will try to locate will be the sulfate ion. So, physical appearance just helps you to make a guess so that your next reactions or the next proceedings are a little guided. Now, we will talk about the cation and anion in detail. The cation, whenever we have to test a cation in the salt, what we do is we take a salt and we treat it with an alkali. Please listen to this. This is a very, very important part of your syllabus. When we have to identify the cation in any salt, we take this given salt and treat it with an alkali. This will result in the formation of a precipitate, or rarely no precipitate. You have to study two things about this precipitate. One, you must note down the color of the precipitate, and you must note down the solubility of the salt in excess of alkali. That means, suppose you have taken the salt and you have treated it with, say, NaOH. NaOH is the alkali. This will result in the formation of a precipitate. You will note down the color of the precipitate, and then you will add the same alkali in a larger quantity and note whether that precipitate gets dissolved or it does not get dissolved. This is the only two things you are going to observe for the identification of cation. Now for the anion, a sample of that salt will be taken and that salt will be treated with a dilute acid. If this does not give a reaction, then you will take the salt and you will treat it with a concentrated acid. Anyway, we will come to that detail later on. But presently you understand that for the identification of the anion, we take the salt and we treat it with a dilute acid. This will result in the production of a gas. Now here I would like to remind you that you have studied the properties of acid, the chemical properties. That means when any carbonate salt is treated with an acid, it always gives you carbon dioxide. Let me take an example. Suppose you are taking sodium carbonate and you are treating it with HCl. This will give you NaCl and water, and it will give you CO2. What we are doing here is that we try to identify and confirm the gas, and on the basis of that gas, we know that the salt is a carbonate or a bicarbonate salt. So this is exactly what we are doing. So that is why we take the salt and we treat it with a dilute acid, which will give us a gas. On the basis of physical appearance of the gas, physical appearance can be a brisk effervescence, it can be some kind of a smell, it can be some fumes or something. So that is physical appearance. On the physical appearance, we will try to guess the gas which is produced. And then we will perform a confirmatory test for that gas. For example, suppose as in this reaction CO2 has given out. CO2 when it will come out with a brisk effervescence. On the basis of that, we can say that it might be carbon dioxide. So if you perform a test which will confirm the presence of carbon dioxide, you know that the gas produced is carbon dioxide, and only on a treatment of a carbonate or a bicarbonate salt with an acid, carbon dioxide will come out. So on the basis of this, you will say that the salt is definitely a carbonate or a bicarbonate. So this is the chemistry behind it. So we are going to study the physical appearance, guess the gas, and then we are going to confirm the gas. On the basis of confirmation of the gas, the anion in the salt will be established. So now with the help of a chart, I will first tell you how the various cation and then later on how are the various anions identified. What color, for example, and what kind of a solubility will indicate which particular cation in the given salt. I will explain that to you a little briefly. Now I have taken identification of the cations, for which I have already told you, you have to take alkali, you have to add alkali to the given salt. Now I have taken the example of two alkalis, ammonium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide. It could have been potassium hydroxide also. Now to the salt, if we add alkali, say the alkali is ammonium hydroxide, and the precipitate formed is dirty green in color. Dirty green is actually, it resembles the color of alga. Green color, alga, I hope you understand. So that is why the color is called, you can say it is the green color with a tinge towards black. A blackish green you can say. Now children, please be very particular regarding the colors as well as the adjectives we are using with a particular color. Because the board people, when they are marking their papers, they are very, very particular about the color. So if the color is dirty green and you just write green, they may not grant it to you. So write dirty green only. I hope you understand the meaning of dirty green means blackish tinge of green. So on adding ammonium hydroxide, we get a dirty green precipitate, and when we add excess of ammonium hydroxide, the precipitates do not dissolve. It is insoluble. On the basis of color and on the basis of solubility, we can say that the salt contains a ferrous radical in it. Instead of ammonium hydroxide, if you would have added sodium hydroxide, even then the color of the precipitate, then the solubility will be the same and the result will also be the same. Now similarly, if on adding ammonium hydroxide you obtain a reddish brown color and the precipitate remain insoluble when excess of alkali is added to it, then it indicates that the salt contains ferric radical in it. Ferric ion is present in it. Now suppose you are asked the question, how will you distinguish between, say, ferrous chloride and ferric chloride? Now the chloride part in the salt is the same. What is different is ferrous and ferric. So you will say to both the salts I will add, say, ammonium hydroxide. In one of the test tubes I will get a dirty green precipitate. In the other one I will get reddish brown. Both of them will be insoluble in excess. The one which is dirty green is ferrous salt and the one which is reddish brown is a ferric salt. Now the next one. On the addition of ammonium hydroxide, if you obtain a pale blue color, blue color with a tinge of yellowishness to it is known as a pale blue color. And then you add excess of ammonium hydroxide to it, and then this precipitate gets dissolved. I have written soluble. So the precipitate gets dissolved and the solution becomes deep blue in color. So if this is the observation, your inference will be that the salt contains copper ions in it. Instead of ammonium hydroxide, if you would have taken sodium hydroxide, you will straight away get a inky blue precipitate. This will not dissolve. Remember, soluble in ammonium hydroxide, insoluble in sodium hydroxide. So this inky blue precipitate will not dissolve. It will remain insoluble, and this also indicates the presence of the copper ions present in the salt. Now in another salt, if you add ammonium hydroxide and you obtain gelatinous white. Gelatinous basically refers to jelly like. I hope everybody is seen jelly. You eat jelly also. So gelatinous white is a white color. White is a color of course, but gelatinous refers to a transparent kind of a, or a jellish kind of a precipitate which is formed. Now when you add excess of ammonium hydroxide, it dissolves and the solution becomes colorless. So this indicates the presence of zinc ion in the solution. With sodium hydroxide also, the color of the precipitate and the solubility is just the same, indicating the presence of zinc ion. Now, to another salt, if you add ammonium hydroxide and you obtain chalky white, it is as if chalk has been put in water. So that kind of precipitate is referred to as chalky white. And when you add excess of ammonium hydroxide, it remains insoluble. It does not dissolve. So this is an indication of the presence of lead ions in the salt. On the addition of sodium hydroxide, you again get the same color, but this time the salt is soluble. The salt means the precipitate is soluble. It dissolves in excess. So this indicates the lead ion. Children, wherever we have a difference in solubility in different alkalis, please make a note and keep it in mind. It is very important because it will help you when, especially when you are distinguishing between two salts, you should know which alkali to be taken, so that one remains soluble and the other remains insoluble. Anyway, we'll come to the question also. So next one is when we take ammonium hydroxide and it does not result in any precipitate at all. So the solution remains clear. So maybe it contains calcium ion. So ammonium hydroxide added to a salt, no precipitate formed. Excess of alkali leaves the solution clear, indicates the presence of calcium ion in the solution. But on the addition of sodium hydroxide, a milky white precipitate is formed, which is sparingly soluble in excess of sodium hydroxide only. This also indicates the presence of calcium ion in the salt. On the addition of ammonium hydroxide, if the precipitate formed is white in color and it remains insoluble in excess of ammonium hydroxide, then it is magnesium ions present in the salt. Notice that I have not added any adjective with it. It is just white. On the addition of sodium hydroxide, the precipitate is definitely white and it remains insoluble again. So it indicates the presence of magnesium here. So I have told you about 7 cations so far. Now, based upon this table, I hope you've understood the table. I have written a few possible questions also. How will you distinguish between calcium nitrate and zinc nitrate? Now, what you note here is that the anion is the same. What is different is calcium and zinc. So how will you distinguish between, say, calcium, this is calcium, and zinc, this is zinc. Now you notice that this one is soluble in excess of alkali, and this one is, what we will do, and ammonium hydroxide is not giving you any precipitate here, so you will avoid taking ammonium hydroxide. You will rather take sodium hydroxide. So how will you answer this question? To both the given salts, you will add sodium hydroxide. One of them will give you gelatinous white precipitate, while the other one will give you a milky white precipitate. Then you will add excess of it. In one of them, where there was gelatinous white, the precipitates will dissolve completely, and the other one will only sparingly be soluble. So the one which is sparingly soluble is calcium. The one which dissolves, which had earlier gelatinous white precipitate, is the zinc. So this is how it is very necessary that you mug up this table or you know this table by heart. Only then you can answer questions like this. The second way of asking question is state the effect of adding a small amount of sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide followed by an excess in zinc sulfate and lead sulfate and calcium sulfate. So basically sulfate remains the same in all three. You have to basically just write what happens when you add sodium hydroxide in a small quantity and then in excess. What happens when you add ammonium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide first in small quantity and then in excess, and what do you observe? For all three, you already have the table to answer that question. Then what do you observe when ammonium hydroxide is added to ferric sulfate solution? If you remember, when we add ammonium hydroxide to ferric sulfate solution, it gives you a reddish brown precipitate. So reddish brown precipitate will be formed, and when you add excess of it, then the reddish brown precipitate will remain insoluble. Then another way is you can be given a table and a few places can be left blank for you to fill. First question, to solution A, sodium hydroxide solution was added. The conclusion is that the solution contains ferric ions. So what must have been your observation? What observation will lead to this conclusion? That you obtain a reddish brown precipitate. Reddish brown precipitate was obtained. On adding sodium hydroxide, if you get reddish brown precipitate, it concludes that the salt contains ferric ions. Now observation is pale blue precipitate. When do you get pale blue precipitate? When you add to any solution, to salt solution, you add ammonium hydroxide. If you remember, in case of ammonium hydroxide it was pale blue, with sodium hydroxide it was deep blue. So for pale blue you've added ammonium hydroxide solution. And what do you conclude here? That copper ions are present in the salt. Basically, if you know that table by heart, you can answer all type of questions. Then identify the cation present in the given salt. On adding ammonium hydroxide to the salt solution, a gelatinous white precipitate was obtained. So it is likely to be zinc, which dissolved in excess of alkali dissolved means it was soluble. So the answer to this will be zinc, presence of zinc ion. On the addition of ammonium hydroxide to a salt solution, a pale blue precipitate was obtained which dissolved in excess of alkali. So the answer to this will be copper ions are present in the given salt. So alright children, just go through what we've done today thoroughly, understand, and if you have a doubt please ask me, and then in the next lecture I'll tell you more about anions. Alright children, have a good day. Bye bye.